This is John Hoag of Satchel, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
John Hoag, guitarist of Satchel.
Yeah, promoting the 2022 re-release of Satchel's Heartache and Honey album.
Yeah, that was their final album from 2010. The band had, I think, 4 albums altogether, but it's awesome. Check it out.
Yeah, and what a fantastic interview. Let's get right to it.
All right, good night.
Good night. John, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
John, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Good to meet you.
Well, thank you for the correspondence and everything. I know my one email kind of got lost in the shuffle with you. We didn't know if you were going to make it tonight, but, man, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's kind of I haven't done anything like this in quite a long time.
Right. Well, hey, we're going to make this unique for you, so... Well, let's get right into it. So Satchel recently re-released the Heartache and Honey album late this past 2022. Can you talk a little bit more about the process of releasing this album on vinyl?
Well, Regan Hagar does most of that type of stuff for Satchel and has come up with the contacts to make that happen and is, Regan has always been our the artist and artist director of our band, essentially, Sure. And so he's really the one that's run with it and came out with this limited edition yellow vinyl, which is super cool. And so, yeah, we're just, re-promoting it again because we want to make sure everybody, gets one of these things because it's really, really kind of special for us, too, because it's on vinyl.
Absolutely.
Back in the old days, we didn't get to have really that option.
No, you sure didn't.
Have you guys talked about maybe releasing any of the other ones on vinyl?
Yes, we are working on getting EDC done next, I believe, and so we're looking for the proper people to do that and the way we would like to do it. So. It really, deserves a proper give off. So we want to make sure it gets done right,
Absolutely.
So yeah, that is in the works, and as much as we can, we want to get everything out there on vinyl.
Well, it seems like it's the craze now, but as far as primarily all of Satchel's releases were on CD at the time. With this album being released on vinyl, what was your thought process, and along with the rest of the band, were you satisfied with the sound, how it came out on vinyl?
Well, I like it. It's got a real warm tone to it that you didn't expect, because I guess I feel like that's always the case with vinyl. Even though, Heartache and Honey was, it wasn't done to tape, it wasn't recorded to tape. It still has that kind of effect when you're playing it, just because it's, spinning on a needle, So.
Well, a lot of artists, that have released material back in, I would say, the late 90s, early 2000s, and all their material was released on CD format. Some of them yearn to get their material out on vinyl. Was that for you and the rest of the band? Was that a primary focus, is to get your material on vinyl because of, vinyl has made a comeback?
Yeah, I believe, I feel like we were trying to get it on vinyl even back then, and we were faced with kind of, the bigger corporation type record company that was, putting to death cassettes in the process of making life happen for CDs, and that's all they wanted to do. It seemed like that's all they wanted to do, and so it was like really hard pressed to get them to do anything kind of vinyl back in the day. Now it seems like we have a little more control over our own destiny, in that we can just do it as we feel proper, or because we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, as Eric can attest, ever since 1994, I've been trying to promote the band Satchel to anybody that'll listen. I've been a fan since that CD came out. But can you take us back? How'd you get involved with Sean Smith and Regan Hagar, and where were you at before Satchel?
First of all, appreciate your listening and liking Satchel and promoting. I appreciate that. In 91, we got together, myself and my cousin Corey, the first bass player of the band. Yeah. We were in a band together, and then we weren't happy with the way we were going. So we were looking for something else, and went to a friend of ours and at a practice pad that he had down in downtown Seattle, and there was Regan Hagar, and we just jammed improvisationally for hours. I mean, just hours and hours. It was like we'd been together for years, and we just met this guy, and I kind of already knew who he was through Seattle talk, Sure. Regan's pretty much a legend in the Seattle area, and my cousin wasn't quite privy to that information yet, and so I didn't really tell him that because I wanted him to keep playing right, Yeah. So, but anyway, then Sean Smith came the next night, and that's when we formed Bliss, along with our friend Jeff Bennett on sax at that time. Yep. So we were doing, shows in Seattle and getting kind of a real good buzz going. And a Canadian band found out our name. They have the copyright on the name Bliss. And so we changed the name to Satchel at that point. And that's when Jeff, the sax player, left the band, and we kind of firmed up as a four-piece, Mm-hmm. And then we signed to Epic and recorded EDC, the first one, in about 93, I think. We released it in 94.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's and then we had a long couple of years together,
Absolutely. Well, if you could take us back to 2010 when Heartache and Honey was originally released, can you give our listeners an insight on the creation of that album?
Well, at that point, I had been out of the band for about 13 years.
Yeah.
So, and for whatever reason, we'll not go into all that, but I had never really left Satchel in my mind. Satchel was always my number one band, even though I wasn't in the band. And I think the other guys knew that. I had been writing these songs for years, not knowing what I was going to do with them or if I was ever going to be playing with those guys again. And in 2009, I returned with Satchel, and that's when we recorded Heartache and Honey.
As far as creative process goes, do you have any stories about the actual writing and recording process of that album?
Well, with Satchel, it was kind of we bring our own songs in. Like, say, I would write a song, or Sean would write a song, and we'd bring it to the table, or Regan would write a song and bring it to the table. And then we'd create from, like a painting from there, in the studio. So most of the songs that you hear, like, for instance, even going back to EDC, a song called O, which some people call Zero, but it's actually O.
Yeah.
It's like a painting. We would splash a paint of color on this, a musical painting of this, a musical sound like this, and it would all come out. And a lot of times with Sean, the best thing we would let him do, or he would like to do, is just take what we had recorded and painted up until that point in time, go into another room and shut all the doors and just do what Sean did.
Oh yeah.
Was just go to town with it. It was always just the best to leave him alone with it, for like a few hours, and you just come back with this amazing stuff,
Oh, so cool.
So that's kind of always how we did things through all three of the albums. Is one person would bring the idea, and then everyone else would paint their idea right on top of it, and then the end result was always something that we never thought we would expect,
Yeah,
fantastic.
Well, I know all your writing credits. Your band always credited as songs written by the Satchel Partnership, and I always thought that was cool when bands do that, when they don't hey, that's my song, I want all the credit, so it's cool.
Yeah, and that was something that was kind of deep within the roots of Satchel itself. Is the Satchel Partnership was a form of expressing how we share everything, absolutely equally, with each other and with everyone else in the world. We, wasn't there to say, I wrote this song and I need to have more credit on that, so it was always written by, the Satchel Partnership.
Well, speaking of writing, Created a Monster is my favorite track on Heartache and Honey. Can you talk a little bit more about the creation of that track?
I love that one too myself. Created a Monster is one that I brought to the table. It's, a real rocker, kind of punker almost song. And I just, I love it because the energy just really, especially on stage, is something else. When Regan and I start playing, it's just, the energy immediately kicks off like a firecracker, and that is one of those kind of deals, kind of same as like Taste It on EDC, the first album. It's a real riff oriented, but a lot of energy there.
Well, it's such a banger of a track.
Yeah.
How did it come about? Is it something that which member of the band brought this track to the table? It's just such a fantastic song.
I appreciate that. I was the one that brought that one to the table initially, and I think I got to play bass on that one even, which I love to play bass as well. So, because in Heartache and Honey, there's a few bass players that went throughout the album, and that was one track. I think got to stick with the final track of the bass, if I remember correctly. I hope I'm saying this right. If I'm not, sorry, Regan.
Very good. Yeah. Well, the band has a few non-album tracks out there floating around. Walk in Freedom is one of my favorite songs off Strange Days soundtrack. I know the Mr. Pink single has Nice Guy Eddie and Vic Vega. Do you guys have any extra tracks laying around that you could maybe release?
Well, I'm hoping to. We do. We have actually quite a bit, and it's just actually a matter of getting all the master original material together to work on it itself. Because, most of the stuff in the past was done on tape, and we know where Heartache and Honey and all that is because that was recent. But, so we're just trying to get that all together, and I'd love to, there's a few side ones that are, in particular, that are, I think, would do real well to be released, just for people to hear how Sean, because there's a lot of different styles that Sean did within Satchel. He tended to do a certain kind of style for a certain kind of band with his other bands, but with this one, with Satchel, I always felt it was his experimental. It was his sounding board to do kind of whatever the F he wanted to,
Yes. And I always liked I think you guys had more of the heavier sound of the bands that he did. Talk a little bit about your, I guess, because I think you're kind of an underrated guitarist. I think you are, a shredder that maybe doesn't get enough credit. Can you talk a little bit about your influences?
I appreciate them. Thank you. Well, I grew up in a jazz-oriented family. My grandfather was a grand pianist for big band jazz when it was at the height of its deal in downtown Seattle and downtown Tacoma back in the early days. And he played up until he was, pretty old before he passed away. And it kind of resonated through our whole family and my whole life. So there was a heavy jazz influence there. But, when I got to be in my teenage years, went crazy for, metal and punk, and so I feel like it's always been a kind of a combination of all those things. And, because it was always real experimental in my family as well. We'd just sit around and make up jams that were improvisational jazz jams. So it kind of grew up that way. And then that's kind of how we did things in Satchel too. Improvisational rock jams. Oftentimes it turned into, great songs. So.
Oh, very good. I wanted to kind of touch upon Sean Smith's genius. Such a unique musician, such a unique vocalist.
Indeed.
I guess I hope I can kind of form this question the right way, but how did his presence influence you as a musician? And I guess maybe how did you take what he, I guess, maybe gave to you guys and go with it? Because he wasn't a simple musician by any regards.
No, he was not. He was not a simple musician, and a genius to be sure. He just is a free spirit, I guess, is a great way to describe him because of his ability to just not be bound by previously notions of how you should be in a band or how you should be with your music or how you should sing. There was nobody doing anything remotely like what Sean was doing when we started. It was everyone in Seattle was trying to kind of jump on the grunge bandwagon, and we specifically, Sean actually, I remember him saying right before we made EDC, he's like, I don't want to make a grunge album. And I said, I don't either. I really don't want to make a grunge album. And that's, that's why I think, EDC is so kind of eclectic in its manner in the album. It's kind of all over the place with its styles, whereas the Family was a little more toned down to, maybe more piano-oriented rock,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but, with Sean, it's just his influences, obviously one of them, a huge one was Prince, but, he was into things like Zap, More Bounce the Ants was like one of his favorite songs ever, just because it had a kick and a clap that was his favorite thing, And so when it was funky, he could really get down.
Yeah,
and when it was heavy, he could really let loose. And when he was, when it was mellow, he could really become emotive and emotional and really tug at your heartstrings, frankly, And so, I always just enjoyed what a unique singer he was here in Seattle. There's really never been anybody like that here in Seattle. The closest I would say would be Andy Wood, and that's because, Sean loved Andy Wood, But even that, Sean was his own unique and obviously beautiful person,
Fantastic. Well, okay, so you touched upon you didn't want to make a grunge album, and it would behoove us not to talk about the Seattle scene. And
sure.
For me, I was a product of, Jeff and I are both in our early 50s now, and our time was the 80s, and we listened to Motley Crue and Def Leppard and what have you. But I remember a certain time when I walked into the local record store here where we live, and I walked in and they had just started spinning The Ugly Truth by Soundgarden, and I had never heard anything like that in my life, and I never really considered Soundgarden a grunge band, but that sound was so unique. And with that being said, we started noticing, not necessarily, I hate using the term grunge, but such unique music coming from the Pacific Northwest. What spawned the creativity during that time for you and the rest of the artists out there to create something so different?
I think it largely was due to the region itself and the fact that 9 to 10 months out of the year here it is cold and cloudy and rainy. And so, we're generally, sun deprived and maybe a little depressed and all want to get it out and get work it out in our different form or fashion. And there was a big, again, back to the punk and, kind of metal thing going, kind of together early on before anything was mislabeled grunge, And it wasn't just that. It was, there was many other musical styles happening. It just got focused in on one, And then again, I think mislabeled and, bands like, Mudhoney and Melvins, who actually were really integral to the way it started, kind of got passed by,
Yeah.
So, if anything, really, the Melvins are what everybody kind of borrowed from in order to make the sound what it is today, So, Buzz Osborne, he really combined a lot of those punk and metal elements that everyone was just really digging on at the time, and I think it's about that energy, again, back to the energy. I think that everybody was, kind of all, honing in on that at the same time. and it was just snowballing, like crazy,
Absolutely.
I was fortunate enough to see Brad live once, but I never did get to see Satchel. I know you guys had a couple tours. Did you guys ever record any of the tours? Do you guys have any live material that you could release?
I don't know. It's possible, actually, because Barrett Jones is an engineer here from Seattle, and he did our sound for us on a couple of our tours, and he may have had some stuff that's off the board, Nice. But, I don't think so. We did Lollapalooza in '96, and that's got a couple like videos on YouTube that are out, but as far as it being recorded, where it could be remixed, that I don't think so. I don't believe so, but you never know.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed.
It sure be great. It sure would be great. I'd love to hear some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so one of the reasons we're here tonight is to learn more about you. After Satchel, I know you said you quit and you left for a while. What'd you do after you left Satchel?
Well, I'll tell you. Okay, so we did EDC in '94, and we did extensive touring then, and that's when actually we kind of got rid of my cousin Corey Kane as bass player. Just some personal differences within the band, and we hired my best friend Mike Berg, who ended up recording The Family with us. So he's the bass player on The Family. Mm-hmm. And we recorded The Family in '96 with Stone Gossard co-producing on that one. And then we did a lot of touring on that with, like I said, with Lollapalooza and Better Than Ezra. Mm-hmm. So, and that's when I accidentally quit the band once. I, in a drunken whatever, flew my ass home from the very last show after there was one show left of this tour, and they came back. They had to play the show without me, I think, with Barrett Jones, as a matter of fact, on guitar, who was doing the sound for us. And I kind of had a meeting with Sean, and he said, you pretty much crossed the line. And he was right. So we pretty much split at that point, and I went and Mike Berg, who was on bass of Satchel, was recording with a friend of ours named Lisa Taylor with her band Birch County, and he was doing the bass for them, but he could not tour for them. So I went and toured with Birch County as a bass player. And which was really weird because, there's always a guitar player who can play bass, and that's always kind of uncomfortable. But so I actually had to learn how to be a real bass player because it was Mike Berg who recorded all these bass parts. Well, Mike Berg's a Cornish College of the Arts graduate. I don't know if that's a very good college, musical college here. So he's no slacker. Let me put it that way, So anyway, we did extensive touring in support of that album called Northerly for Birch County, and that was out of Texas. Lisa Taylor was on vocals, and in 1999 I returned home from then. I kind of got myself in some trouble, I'm kind of the troublemaker of the Satchel band. I got myself in trouble and with alcohol and drugs. Yeah. And in 2007, I cleaned up my act for the first time, and I returned home to Satchel and actually to Lisa Taylor, who is now my long-term and lifelong life partner. Mm-hmm. Beautiful lady. And we recorded and did some work with a band called Water Fae at that point, Lisa and I. Nice. With Matt Bayless, who also did Heartache and Honey for Satchel.
Nice. Well,
so yeah,
it wouldn't be.
That's some of the stuff we were doing.
Absolutely. So it wouldn't behoove us if we didn't talk about your current band, Opheliac, that features Mike Berg on bass, Patrick Watson on drums, Lisa Taylor on vocals, and yourself on guitar. Can you give our listeners a little bit more of an insight of the origins of the band?
Well, I started that out. It's always been kind of my softer songs, my more mellow songs that I've kind of kept off to the side that are a little more chordal and whatnot. And so I always wanted to do something with these songs. And Lisa and I started playing them together a lot on our back porch. And, we've turned them in basically our little love songs and whatnot. And then Mike Berg came and joined us, and Patrick Watson is an old friend of mine, long-term friend of mine, great drummer out of Seattle, and started playing them. And we were really getting, tight and really working things out practice-wise, like we hadn't done in years for all of us. We're all, like you guys said, we're all in our early 50s, so we're doing what we can after work.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So we were really raring to go, and in 2020 we were going to do the St. Patrick's Day show at High Dive, great club here in Seattle, and it got canceled due to the COVID, and pretty much every club in town shut down, and it just fizzled out. Everything's been fizzled out pretty much. And we're just now trying to get ourselves back into things with Opheliac. So, we want to get back out there and start playing, but it's been pretty quiet ever since the whole COVID thing, honestly.
Understandable, yeah.
Well, I saw some Water Fae tracks out on like SoundCloud and Bandcamp. Do you guys have anything for Opheliac available?
We don't yet, so that's the other thing I really want to do is get it into getting recorded, and I'd like to actually take that to, I've talked to a very little about message with actually Barrett Jones, who, like I said, he did some of the stuff on EDC, and he's done live stuff with us, and he's done an amazing amount of things with Foo Fighters, you name it, just a great guy. And so this is one of those kinds of bands that I think is right up his alley, where he can really make it sound like something else. So I'm kind of looking forward to taking it there. But we're not, you never know what really is going to happen with things. So we'd like to get it out there. The Water Fae stuff, that was done by Matt Bayless, and he's also a phenomenal engineer, So we had a great time doing that Water Fae stuff. It's that kind of shows what Lisa can do, and she's a real belter.
Yeah. Well, as we find the COVID restrictions are now in the rearview mirror for looks like everybody now. Has the band been able to play any live shows at all since here post-COVID?
Not yet. No, like I said, we've been pretty much crickets over here, but we're getting our shit together, Sorry, getting our stuff together, and we'll be out there soon.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to take it back to Water Fae real quick. I've only listened to one song so far, "Bruised," and that was a cool track. Is there a physical product available for that, or is it just the digital?
I believe just the digital is available at this point. There was CDs back when we did it, but I think they may be all gone now at this point. But we can, I can ask Lisa and see what their status is of that. Water Fae was really, that's really her baby, and so was Birch County back in the day, And, she's a real lead singer, what I mean? She's like from the old school lead singer, she's not playing around, you know what I mean? We played shows, where she'd be out there singing her heart out, and she, would spit out into the crowd sometimes, and these dudes start going, spit on me, just spit on me. I don't know what the deal was, but they were digging it.
As you and the rest of the band kind of look at the future for Opheliac, I guess what is the vision for the band? Do you have any idea at this point?
I don't have any idea other than, it's vision-wise, it's a songwriter oriented more than, say, Satchel or even Water Fae, They're not so rocker. They're a little more folky, maybe even on the verge of, I hate to say it, possibly a little country.
Fair enough.
But it's different. It's different. So I'd like to get it out there, and more than anything, just to get it out there for fun. There's a different vision when you get past 50 and you realize that you're probably not going to sell the #1 album in the world. It's more about the enjoyment of it, the process, the making of it, the writing of the songs, the camaraderie of your band, all the stuff that you don't think about when you're younger and grow to miss it when you're older. Those are the precious moments. Those are the things, the slight look you get from the other guy in the band when you kind of messed up, live, that's the stuff you think about later, and you're like, man, I want to go back to those days,
Well, for you, the artist that you are, what do you prefer? Do you prefer getting in the studio and creating music, or do you prefer going out and once they're created, going out and playing it live? Where's your, I guess maybe your, creative. Hold on, I'm trying to edit this, Jeff. Yeah. But where's your creative preference, I should say?
Well, I guess, live or recording, I probably don't have a preference because they're two, totally different entities when it comes to, what you're feeling out there, and I love them both so much, when you're in the studio and you're writing and you're creating and you're just this flow, again, the camaraderie with, your bandmates. It's something else that can't be described. And again, with live, the same thing. If you're in front of a big crowd or even a small crowd that's really into it, and just really you can feel the vibe between you and them, and you can feel the vibe between you and your guitar, and it's something else. It can't be. It's hard to put words to. It is probably though one of the best feelings in the world. I will say that. For both of them.
Oh, well said. Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, I want to take it back to EDC for just a second. We didn't really talk about the Reservoir Dogs references in the song titles and songs, the little clips and stuff.
Sure.
Take us back to that time. Did you guys were some of the songs written as inspiration from that movie, or did you guys have the songs and then go, oh, this would fit?
Well, we seemed like we had gotten into that movie early on, even before how it became such a big and incredible deal that it is now, or it was. And so, we were real, the songs themselves were not inspired by the movie, the titles, yes, and the sound bites, yes, because we were all very, we were young and into just, doing things like that, making our flyers out of cutting up, newspapers as different, letters, so it all looks completely different, same kind of deal, we wanted to just, put splashes of this and splashes of that. Of what we were into at the time, and then it became something bigger. By the time we, mixed it, mastered it, get it out to recording it, it had become a bigger entity than we had, thought was going to happen. As far as Reservoir Dogs. Yeah. And so, it was okay. That's fine. But I think that a lot of references that kind of got missed, as far as the song itself, because of the title of a Reservoir Dogs, whatever. may have happened.
Yeah.
You never know.
Fair enough. Well, I have one more question. I ask this question to every guest we have. It's the mystery of rock and roll. With the dawning of internet and social medias, there's really no mystery to rock and roll anymore. There's no Led Zeppelins or Kiss or Black Sabbaths anymore that have this mystery to them. But for you, the artist and the fan, where's your preference in the now? Do you prefer the accessibility that we have with artists now? Because if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be doing this. Or do you miss the old days of the mystique of rock and roll?
Wow, that is a question, isn't it? I really do miss the mystique a lot because, I was a huge Zeppelin fan. I'll admit it. At an early age because of my mom, I think. And, there was a whole, a mystique to it that was something that, drew you in and really made you want this, and but the accessibility was not there.
Exactly.
For sure, and for a musician and for, say, a lot of my friends here in Seattle, social media is a huge part of what, makes them work and be employed and, and get their creativity out there is just by the ability that we are able to immediately share in the way that we do. And so it's pretty special, but I guess if I had to pick one, I'd go with the mystique.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to promote or plug?
We're just redoing the, Satchel Heartache and Honey limited edition vinyl. I would like to note that the Brad, In the Moment That You're Born, came out April 27th. It is fantastic.
Yes.
And the full Brad release is on July 28th, I believe. And I'm looking forward to that myself.
Me too.
I've always been a Brad fan ever since day one. So, even as the sister band of Satchel, who we've always considered, I can't wait. And that In the Moment That You're Born is the heaviest thing I've heard those guys do probably ever. So I'm looking forward to the new stuff.
Yeah, me too.
So are we. Well, this is how things are going to work out, John. We have about 3 weeks worth of material that we have to release before yours, but after Jeff, the editing wizard over here, gets everything all cleaned up and edited for us, I'll send you the link immediately, and if you could, share it to your social media or wherever, we'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I really
thank you guys. Appreciate you having me.
Well, hey,
really honored to be here.
Oh man, real quickly, Jeff over here is just a ginormous Satchel and Brad fan.
Yeah. So
whenever I get a chance to get a member of either band on there, man, I got to get it for him because he's like a little kid in a candy store.
Right on, man.
So hey, it's been a true
appreciate it.
It's been a true pleasure. I'll be in touch with you in about 3 weeks. Sound good?
All right, sounds good. It's been my pleasure as well, you guys. Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
floodlights. Fight the grip of death. You can